Hello, dear students. You are once again welcome to the Shivarajan's teaching room. Today we are having the sixth episode on the first chapter of plus 2 botany, organic reproduction in organisms. In the last session we have been discussing about the special features of sexual reproduction. In this episode we'll be continuing that. So in the last episode we had seen the special features like vegetative phase, juvenile phase, estrous cycle, menstrual cycle, etc. Today we will be discussing about the other special features of sexual reproduction. See, sexual reproduction has three important stages. First one is pre-fertilization events. Second, fertilization, and third, post-fertilization events. So, the process of sexual reproduction can have three important stages. First one, pre-fertilization events. What is pre? Pre means before. Before fertilization takes place, what are happening? These are included in the pre-fertilization events. Then the actual fertilization. What is fertilization? The fusion of the male and female gametes. Then post-fertilization. Post means after. So what happens after fertilization? So what happens before fertilization? Pre-fertilization. Then the actual fertilization. Then what happens after fertilization? That is the post-fertilization events. So we will take one by one. So what is pre-fertilization events? Those events or those processes that take place before fertilization, that is pre-fertilization events, these include gametogenesis. Gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? Gametogenesis is the process of formation of gametes. Gametes are to be formed. That is gametogenesis. Then the second is gamete transfer. The male and female gametes produced by gametogenesis are to be brought physically together. They have to come together. That is gamete transfer. So, gametogenesis is the process of formation of the male and female gametes. The male organism produces the male gamete, and the female organism produces the female gamete. The male gamete is called antherozooid. Antherozooid or sperm. The male gamete is called the antherozooid or sperm, and the female gamete is called ovum or egg. So the male organism produces the male gamete, and the female organism produces the female gamete. The male gamete is called antherozooid or sperm, and the female gamete is called ovum or egg. Then, in some plants, two types of flowers are formed. Certain flowers will have only the male reproductive part, that the stamen. You know that the stamen is the male reproductive part. If a flower has only the stamen, that flower can be called as unisexual flower, because only one sex organ is there, either male or female. If the stamen is there, that unisexual flower can be called as staminate. Staminate flower. So what is a staminate flower? A unisexual flower which has only the stamens or the male reproductive part is called a staminate flower or staminate. Then if the unisexual flower is having the female reproductive part, that is the pistil, it is called a pistillate. Pistillate. So unisexual flowers having stamens are called staminate flowers, and unisexual flowers having pistil are called pistillate. Then again those plants which have both the male and female sex organs, those plants which produces the male and female sex organs, the stamens and pistil, they are called the homothallic or monoecious. So what's a monoecious plant? A monoecious plant is the plant which produces both the male flowers and the female flowers. Both the sex organs are there. So coconut tree is a monoecious plant. And some plants produces only the male flowers. Such plants cannot bear the fruit. There are some plants of the same species which can produce only the female flowers, and those plants will bear the fruit. So male and female sex organs are present in different plants. Such plants are called heterothallic or dioecious. So papaya is an example for a dioecious plant. So when we consider about the sexuality in plants, there are monoecious plants and dioecious plants. Monoecious plants means plant that bears both the male and female flowers. They are called monoecious, and coconut tree is a monoecious plant. And what is heterothallic or dioecious? Plants which produce only either the pistate flowers or the staminate flowers, or the male flowers or the female flowers only. And such plants are called the dioecious, and papaya is an example for dioecious plant. And again, in connection with gametogenesis, one more thing takes place there. What is cell division? See, we know that the gametes are haploid. Gametes are haploid. What do you mean by haploid? The condition of having half the number of chromosomes. Suppose a human cell, if we examine, we have 46 chromosomes in all the cells. In all the cells there are 46 chromosomes. But if we examine a sperm, it has 23 chromosomes. If we examine ovum, it has 23 chromosomes. So 46 chromosomes is called a 2n or diploid. This condition, having double the number of chromosomes, is called a diploid. So in human cells, all the cells are 46 chromosomes, so the cells are diploid, or we can say 2n. But the sperm is having 23 chromosomes, so it is haploid or n. Ovum is also 23 chromosomes, so it is also n. So gametes are haploid. Gametes are haploid. And how a haploid cell is produced? A haploid cell is produced by a particular type of cell division called meiosis. What is meiosis? Meiosis is a type of cell division where the chromosome number is reduced to half in the daughter cells. And these haploid cells become the gametes. So in the gametes there will be only half the number of chromosomes. So the sperm is haploid, ovum is also haploid. So when the organism, if the organism is diploid, if the cells in the organism are having diploid condition or double the number of chromosomes, then the gametogenesis takes place by meiosis. So in diploid organisms, gametogenesis takes place by meiosis, so that the chromosome number will be reduced to half in the gametes. But if the organism is a haploid one, there are such organisms, the gametes produced in these organisms will be having the same chromosome number as the organism cells. So there is no change. So what happens? But we know that the gametes are haploid. So the gametes, how many chromosomes are there in the gametes? that much chromosome is there in the cells of the organisms also. These organisms are called haploid organisms. So if the organism is haploid, gametogenesis takes place by mitosis. What is mitosis? Mitosis is the cell division where chromosome number is not changed. The daughter cells produced will have the same number of chromosomes as in the parent cell or the mother cell, we can say. So we have to be very careful about this condition. What is it? The gametes are always haploid. If the organism is diploid, gametes are produced by meiosis, and if the organism is haploid, gametogenesis takes place by mitosis. Okay, then gamete transfer. What is gamete transfer? After the formation of the gametes, the male gamete is produced in the male organism, the female gamete is produced in the female organism, but for fertilization, both the male and female gametes have to be brought physically together. They have to come together so that then only they can fuse. That is gamete transfer. So the pre-fertilization events are gametogenesis and gamete transfer. So what is gamete transfer? The male gamete is to be, normally the male gamete is, in most of the cases the male gamete is motile and the female gamete is non-motile. So the gametes are to be brought together physically for facilitating fertilization, that is gamete transfer. And fertilization takes place in two ways, externally and internally. If the fertilization takes place externally, the gamete transfer needs the medium of water. So gamete transfer is effected by the medium of water in the case of external fertilization. And in the case of internal fertilization, the male gamete is transferred into the genital tract of the female. So the fertilization is taking place internally. So gamete transfer is another thing. Now the second thing is fertilization. What is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of the male and female gametes. And again, the fertilization may take place externally or internally. Then one more thing is about the gametes. Sometimes the gametes may be of similar type. See, both the gametes, this is the male gamete and this is the female gamete, but we cannot distinguish these things because the male and female gametes are of the similar size and shape and type. So such gametes are called isogamous. This condition is called isogamous or isogametes. So when the male and female gametes are of the similar size, it is called isogamous. Then suppose this is the ovum. This is the ovum. And this is the sperm. In this case, this is the ovum and this is the sperm. In this case, the gametes are of different size. This condition is called heterogamous. Heterogamete. Heterogamete. So isogamous means both the male and female gametes are of the same size, and Chlamydomonas, an algae, is an example for that. For isogamous, Chlamydomonas is an example. Then this heterogamous condition also in certain fungi and algae, for example ficus, F-I-C-U-S, ficus is a fungus, is an algae. Ficus is an algae. So this ficus is having different types of gametes. This is the female gametes, very big, but the sperm is very, very small. So the gametes are of different type. Such a condition is called heterogamous or heterogametes. Human gametes also. Human gametes also, it is heterogamete. See, this is the ovum and this is the sperm. Here also it is heterogamous. So now we have to see what is post-fertilization events. Post means what? After. So what happens or what are the changes that takes place after fertilization? So The sexual reproduction involves three important stages. What are they? Pre-fertilization events, fertilization and post-fertilization events. See, now the post-fertilization. What is post-fertilization? Post means after. So after fertilization, what happens? The male and female gamete has fused already. That is, fertilization has effected. Now a single cell is formed. It is called a zygote. As a result of fusion or fertilization, a single cell is produced. It is called a zygote. The zygote undergoes repeated mitotic division. The zygote is a single cell. It divides into two and becomes two cells. Then both the cells divide and becomes four cells. So it becomes a cluster of cells. 2 cells, 4 cells, 8, 16, 32, 64, it goes on like that and becomes a cluster of cells and becomes an embryo. So this zygote, which is a single cell, undergoes repeated mitotic division and develops into an embryo, and it finally grows into the next offspring. That developmental process is called embryogenesis. So the post-fertilization events can be zygote formation and embryogenesis. What is zygote formation? The fusion of the male and female gametes and the formation of a single cell. That single cell is called zygote. The zygote undergoes repeated mitotic division and becomes large number in cells and finally develops into the next young one. And this process of development of the zygote into embryo and develop into the next offspring is called embryogenesis. And in this connection, we have to see one more thing. What is it? In some organisms, the female gamete will not get fused with the male gamete, but that means fertilization doesn't take place. So this egg is an unfertilized egg. It is an unfertilized egg. This unfertilized egg in some organisms develop into the next young one. That process called parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis. What is parthenogenesis? Parthenogenesis is the process of development of the unfertilized egg or ovum into the offspring. So this type of reproduction can be seen in aphids, then bees, turkey, etc. So what is parthenogenesis? Parthenogenesis is the mode of sexual reproduction where the unfertilized egg develops into the young one. This process called parthenogenesis. Example is aphids, bees, turkey, etc. are examples of parthenogenesis. And again, fertilization can be, I told you, can be of two types. What is it? External and internal. External fertilization always takes place in the medium of water. And internal fertilization takes place inside the body of the female. So, now we have to see that in the case of external fertilization, the male gamete and the female gamete are released into the water. So the chances of fusion of these gametes is rare. So what happens? If a sperm has to fuse with an ovum, large number of male gametes are to be produced. So in the case of external fertilization, the male gametes are produced in multiples of thousands than the female gamete, because the chances of fertilization is very rare, very remote. So the male gametes are produced in large numbers. Again, the external fertilization has one more thing. What is it? The offsprings produced or the zygote produced as a result of external fertilization are open to predators. The zygote is developing into the embryo. So at this stage, it may happen to, or it may be eaten away by other organisms living in the water. So they are vulnerable to predators. That means there is every chance for these young ones to be eaten away by the other animals in the water. So in the case of external fertilization, male and female gametes are produced in large numbers. One reason is then only the chances of fertilization can be there. Second is the offsprings are vulnerable to predators. To overcome this, the young ones are produced in large numbers. So dear students, with this we have come to the close of this chapter, and the first chapter in botany, reproduction in organisms, ends here. So in the next episode we will meet you with the next chapter, that too in zoology. We have seen a chapter in botany, so next will be zoology, and we will be dealing with human reproduction. Thank you.